Hey there guys, this is Jack over at Hi Redbird, and today's video is an in-depth discussion on the concerns you should have with holiday decorations and holiday gatherings in terms of keeping your bird safe. Now, this video is a discussion that I did with my friend Robin Sullivan, and while I previously did a video on holiday hazards, this video goes more in depth and it also covers many of the things that are not as obvious. Now, this live stream was a discussion that we did on her page, the Leather Elves Facebook page. That is going to be something that we are going to continue to do for the foreseeable future. So if you would like to participate directly in these conversations, they are happening on the Leather Elves Facebook page at 7 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. We do have a variety of topics scheduled up, and they are a ton of fun. Plus, we give away prizes, we have trivia, so it's an educational moment that we strive to make entertaining as well. But if you're unable to make that, all of the videos will also be put on the Hi Redbird YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this advanced discussion on holiday hazards for your bird.
Everybody, and I bet you thought we weren't going to show up again. But look at this. Through the magic of Nick, we are able to be here. So welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin, and this is Jack. Jack's not really the same, but we'll let him pretend to be for right now. So tonight we're going to talk about some holiday hazards. There's, Jack and I have both done articles on the Leather Elves and Hi Redbird about those holiday hazards, but we thought we'd do it live so that if questions came up, if people had things that we hadn't thought of, it would, maybe be helpful for people as the holidays are upon us. So Jack and I talked about what was the top one. So we kind of thought that we'd start with decorations. Cause look, I'm a little over the top here. Jack, are you being festive? You got festive stuff going on at your place?
So I actually didn't like how it looked in the frame, so I hid it. So it's a few feet to either side of what you guys can see. Uh, but yeah, I've been trying to incorporate as much Christmas into our home as possible this year. I think, 2020 has been a fairly rough year for a lot of people. So we
Mm-hmm.
have been trying to overload on Christmas because for me, that's one of the things that just makes our house really, really exciting. And I mean, because again, it's 2020. There isn't as much exciting or thrilling things happening. Though I do have to admit that the Friday night flock talks have become one of the most exciting portions of my week.
See, he says that like it's funny, and it's not because, this really is fun. Diane's here. Hi, Diane and Eva and Bev. Thank you guys for listening. So decorations. Let's start with the big one, the tree, the elephant in the room, if you will. So live tree, fake tree. It doesn't, there are hazards attached to both. Or hazards is such a tough word. I think maybe it needs to be cautions, things you should be cautious about, not necessarily hazards. So the tree, Jack, do you get a live tree or do you have an artificial tree?
So we utilize an artificial tree because I do not like the feeling when the needles start to dry out and drop off, of then walking around and stepping on sharp little dried out needles. And especially because we have carpet where we keep the tree, that would be a little bit more of an issue. So
Mm-hmm.
we utilize an artificial tree. Um, and like you said, I think both live trees and artificial trees are going to have their own sets of hazards. So for our tree, our artificial tree, the things that I would be concerned about with a bird are one, the little plastic pieces that make up the faux needles on the tree. If a bird were to land on that tree and start shredding them, possibly ingesting them, um, as we all know, small pieces of plastic are one of the worst impaction hazards for citizens imaginable. So that would be a big concern for me. The hinges, because ours, the entire top third of it doesn't come apart into pieces, it is all hinged. So I
Mhm.
obviously would want to be careful about a bird being on anything that has moving parts that are not necessarily bird safe. I cannot guarantee that the wire that is inside the tree that holds the pieces together is bird safe as well. So all of those are things that I would take into consideration. Um, Now that being said, I still took my new baby green cheek and set him on one of the branches so that I could get a festive holiday photo. Um, and
And
I think we need to address that as well. Um,
I think that's
that
definitely okay. I think, you know, a lot of people do use plastics with their birds, and that's, it's a choice that people make. You just have to be very vigilant about it. You need to, if you're going to have your bird out near the tree, the bird should not be around the Christmas decorations without supervision, first of all. And having your Christmas party does not count for supervision. It's that if you're being the hostess with the mostest, you can't be supervising the bird at the same time. So you've got to just keep your eye on it. And if they start to pluck at the little needles, the faux needles, then maybe they shouldn't be on the tree. The other thing with a real tree is the issue of chemicals. You don't know what that's been treated with. You don't know. Jack brought up something. Jack totally dated himself the other day when we were talking. He mentioned flocked trees. Okay. Flocked trees. Do y'all remember trees? So we don't have to do that up here in the Northeast because we get real snow. But where Jack is, he needs to maybe flock the tree. I don't know, but that you don't know what that substance is that's on the tree. So you've got to, think about that in case you're, living in 1960 and you're going to still flock your tree. Um, Jack's like, oh, I'm in
I
so
swear
much
it's
trouble.
still a thing. I swear people still do it. They make like a little spray that you can do it at home. So it's not even necessarily an issue about having it done where you get your Christmas tree. People can do it at home. But again, you're going to have the same issues with all of those chemicals being on your live Christmas tree. So, okay, I might be a little older than I'm willing to admit, but it is still a concern.
You're still younger than me, hon. It's okay. All right. So not only, so now we've got the tree taken care of. We've kind of talked about the tree itself. So unless you're going to go really natural and just have that tree standing in your living room, um, you got to talk about the lights. Lights they're a danger because they're pretty and they're shiny. And if you bite them with a beak, you're probably going to break the lights. The other thing is there's that wire with that electrical current running through it. And we've got to think about, are they going to have access to those wires? So again, it's the supervision piece. Um, and your decorations. So if you're as old as Jack, you might have hand painted decorations on your tree. I don't know. I'm going to go for it. But you don't know what that paint is. You don't know, is it from, grandma's grandma and it was lead paint? Some people, you want to see really old Jack, some people use actual lead tinsel. Jack, you don't remember that.
No.
He's like, he's going to pay for this, is what's running through his head. Can you all see the little thought bubble above his head? Um, oh, and Eva brings up some people use cotton batting to represent. So, like, remember angel hair? Jack, you probably don't remember angel hair. So that used to go over the tree, and that's another thing that's dangerous. And you've got to think about what are you putting. It's kind of like a toddler on crack, so you got to think about what's out there. Um, Jack, you brought up one
Right.
about the garland that you use. Um,
Sorry.
it's got wire. The garland that you use has wire
Yes.
inside it, right? And so you
Yeah.
were
So
saying
that's
that
actually So this one right here is actually a natural pine garland, and the entire thing is wrapped with wire the entire length of it. So we do have this over our windows because we like the look for it. But I don't know what type of wire that is, so that's not something that I want a bird chewing on. I don't know this garland, just like your tree, even if you don't have a flocked tree, you can't necessarily guarantee that that tree has not been exposed to pesticides where it was growing. You don't know what it was exposed to when it was in the Christmas tree lot to try to keep it safe. And that can include things like, you know, if there's a lot of car traffic going by, those things are going to pick up on that wood as well. Um, so I mean, there's a lot of things to consider here, um, and I
well,
think the
Dill,
important part is. Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. I said I think
No,
the
I was
important thing to remember here. We're gonna have one of those calls. um, you know, we're going to talk about a lot of different things that are, like you said, not necessarily hazards, but issues of concern, things you should think about. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have these things. Uh, we're just putting this together to try to encourage people to think things through so that they can have as safe and wonderful a holiday season as possible. Because with as bad as 2020 has been for a lot of people, it's been a pretty rough year. We don't want to end the year with an emergency vet visit.
and Dylan Butler brings up that they had a customer whose bird started plucking due to the stress of flashing Christmas lights. So it's kind of the flashing on and off and the effect it has on the parrots. You've got to kind of play that game I've talked about before. Worst case scenario. What could possibly go wrong, and then and again, like Jack says, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean live in a box, a glass box with nothing hazardous. It's just being aware of what's going on and aware of what your bird is interacting with. Which brings me to toxic plants. So, in looking at the list of some of the toxic plants, it's like somebody went, "Oh, it's Christmas. Let's put all the toxic plants on one holiday."
Yeah.
So, it's just crazy. I mean, when you look at so Jack, how many toxic plants can you name for the Christmas and winter holidays?
Okay, let's see. So the obvious one is going to be poinsettias,
Mhm.
holly, mistletoe. Lilies are pretty common as a decoration for Christmas, and they are toxic. Uh, I know there's more, but those are the main ones, holiday themed ones that come to mind. I'm
Chrysanthemums.
willing to bet. Oh, yeah.
And
Um,
and
and
and all of those you know that they're toxic and you've got them and you're like, okay, I'm cool with this, I'm gonna be careful. But at the same time, what happens when Aunt Mary comes over and she brings that beautiful poinsettia? um what do you do then? You've got to think about that, and maybe it's a matter of you accept it and then tomorrow it goes outside, or you accept it and you say to Aunt Mary, this is lovely, and then you regift it. Don't tell Aunt Mary I said this, okay? I don't even have an Aunt Mary. So what would you suggest are other options? I mean, what else can we use for plants? Maybe you use things that you know that your bird can have for browse anyway.
Well, and so I know a lot of Christmas decorations, people use birch branches as a form of Christmas decoration. And I think I know somebody who utilizes birch branches. They can probably tell us a bit about the safety of birch.
If you would like to have a totally safe Christmas holiday decoration, a slab of birch would be the way to go. But yes, we use a lot of birch, and birch is a very bird safe wood. Um, Patricia Anderson, I love that suggestion. Put the plant in a cage, not with the bird, but in a cage by itself. I mean, you've got to get creative. Maybe so who knows? This is going to sound crazy, but maybe you put some, decorations on a bunch of kale, right? I have an ornamental kale downstairs. I don't have edible kale, but I have ornamental kale. But, maybe you put different things on it that the birds can have fun with. It looks decent. And nobody needs to know that it's something you got in the produce department. It's all about being creative.
Well, and if
So,
you're going that route, things like Swiss chard, um, if you have light inside, you can usually get it to do well, and you can get varieties that are green foliage with red stems. So you
mhm,
can get your same holiday color theme going, but with edible plants. Um,
right.
Another option is to just make sure that if you absolutely have to have things like mistletoe and holly, have them in rooms that the bird doesn't have access to. Um, a lot of us, our bird primarily lives in one room. I know for some people, they like to give the bird, when they're home, when they're interacting with them, free reign of the house. But in this instance, you may want to go ahead and say, here, the front living room is where we're planning on having people. That's where we're going to put those decorative plants. We're going to go ahead and just keep the doors to that shut for right now, because you want to make sure that you're providing for the best interest of your bird. And you have to remember that birds are used to living outside. Foraging is one of their, most prominent behaviors. So
Mhm.
a bird is going to see a plant and it is going to be drawn to it in most cases.
So we talked a little bit a couple of sessions ago about station training. We talked very briefly about it. And if you've got a bird that you've worked on stationing, and for whatever reason your bird ends up in a room with a plant that you don't want them near, if you've got them station trained to a certain stand, you could, give them that cue to go to that stand as they approach the plant. It's not always going to work, but it might give you that little leg up to kind of move forward with, okay, all right, I've got you away from that. Now I'll move the plant and you don't need to be anywhere near it. So, Jack, if somebody wanted to station their parrot to a certain stand, would there be a way that they could get one?
So I have actually put together some PVC play stands. If you go to the High Redbird channel, I put together an entire playlist of different types of modifications that you can make to your PVC play stand. But a lot of people had interest in just a basic tabletop stand, and they weren't really that comfortable cutting the PVC or anything like that. So I did put together a kit that this includes everything you need to make a basic tabletop stand. It is all pre-cut to size. It has video instructions, so you don't have to worry about not really understanding the instructions or the photos. And I'm going to be giving one of these away to somebody who is in the continental US. If you guys are not in the continental US, I can offer a 1 hour consultation where I can walk you through making your own stand. Just shipping the box would be would be a Christmas nightmare. But yeah, so
No.
if there, I know you wanted to do a trivia question,
Do you
and
have
we're
a
going to give
trivia question?
away.
The
Yes.
stand?
Um,
All
go
right.
ahead. The stand.
Do you need a drum roll?
Oh,
Do
did
you
I do
have a
it right?
trivia question? You did. That was pretty good.
Yes.
Uh, All right, well, go for it then. They're waiting to answer. I can see the fingers waiting to type. So Jack's going to ask the trivia question. First person to come up with the correct answer gets a tabletop parrot stand, courtesy of High Redbird. Go.
All right. Out of the commonly kept uh, citizen species, name one that exhibits obvious sexual dimorphism.
Do do
That
do do
I,
do do do. No?
I was like, I thought we discussed this, Rob, and they didn't want you to sing. Yeah, even Santa said no.
Santa said no singing.
Santa's so
All
funny.
right. Waiting on those answers. Come on. Sexually dimorphic. Stella's
And,
lorikeet,
and
says Karen Anderson. Jack?
I am so believe it or not, I am not intimately familiar with every single species of parrot on Earth. So I actually need to double check that one.
Oh, Karen, you stumped the master. Patricia Anderson has
Actually,
a new
yeah,
species of parrot, the Arctic parrot. Damn you, spell check. So we're gonna go with
um,
the Stella's lorikeet.
it looks like it is.
Good
Yes.
answer,
So
Karen Anderson. Avian sweets out there in the frozen north. I think we have more snow
although
than you right now, Karen. Yes.
we did get a number of other uh, obviously sexually dimorphic species as well. People listed
Okay.
eclectus parrots, budgies, and that's why I said obviously sexually dimorphic because for a lot of birds, you'll see some that it's like, okay, the females are slightly larger, but yeah, no. So it sounds like Karen is going to be winning a stand.
Excellent. Congratulations, Karen. All right. So let's get back to the hazardous duty. I mean, the hazards. So the next category Jack and I want to talk about is people. People are clearly dangerous. Oh no, wait. No, um, if you're having company over, whether it's socially distanced, whether it's with a mask, without a mask, your choice in your home, you decide I'm not going there. You got to still set up rules. So there need to be rules about toxins because not everybody is as aware as all of you are and doesn't know, they don't always know what's toxic for a bird and what's not. Um, there need to be rules about proximity. How close is okay with your bird? Maybe they have watched way too many episodes of Tropic something where everybody's got birds on their shoulders and life is great, but that's not okay with your bird. Um, there needs to be rules about food sharing. So all of these things. So Jack, how are we going to be diplomatic about this? I'm putting this in your court. Um, why?
Yes, you ask me, the person who has like half a tablespoon of subtlety in my entire body, how I am going to be diplomatic about this. Um, Typically, I tell people when they're allowed to come over to my house that I like the bird more than I like them. So don't break the rules because I have no problem kicking them out of my house, uh, which is probably not the most diplomatic answer. Um, so the fun thing you can do here, if you are a kinder, gentler, more subtle person than I am, is to turn it into an educational opportunity. Uh, you know, a lot of people are interested in our birds, especially when we can start giving them information. And that's why they try to do things with them because they want to have that moment to connect with a bird, um, but they don't necessarily know how. So you can talk to them about, oh, you want to feed that bird? Here, let me give you here, I'm going to give you a single almond, and you can give that almond to the bird rather than trying to sneak it 3 tablespoons of stuffing, when I'm not looking, because one, that's not going to be the greatest food for it to get anyways. And two, depending on the type of bird you have, this is why this gets really difficult to discuss with people, because 2 tablespoons of stuffing for a green-winged macaw is a really good sized treat. 2 tablespoons of stuffing for a budgie is that bird's weight in food that isn't ideal. So explaining to people that the bird doesn't weigh as much as it looks like it weighs, because it needs to be lighter so that it can fly, is a good way to encourage people to pay attention to your animal, maybe get them to watch, but not necessarily do things that would put themselves or the bird at risk.
Right. And I think, Melissa Davis brings up a good point. Thanks, Melissa, that her Zorro is exactly the opposite. He flies right to people. He'll go right on, land on people, and that's the way it's going to go. And so that brings up the issue that some people are afraid of birds. And, a lot of us don't understand that. How is that possible? So back, when I was doing a lot of work with zoos, I had a colleague who ran the hooves and horns at this one particular zoo. And hooves and horns consisted of, camel, bongo. They also had the big cats in their section. She was working protected contact with lions. They got a hornbill in the section. She lost her mind. This was the scariest thing ever. And I'm like, no, it's a bird, and it's, yes, it can do damage, but you can manage that. You're not afraid of the giant carnivore that you're working with, but you're afraid of, this bird. So people who don't understand our birds they see them, oh, it's a pet. So it must be like a cat or a dog. And that's how I'm supposed to interact with it. Well, they're nothing like cats and dogs, and we all know that, but we need to explain that to our friends sometimes, because it's like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. I want to touch it and hold it, and we all know what that leads to. Melissa, yep, get bit. There you go. That's the way it goes. And Eva's former sister-in-law was afraid of birds because of the movie, afraid of parrots because of the movie The Birds. Yeah, who knows what horrors have been visited upon these people in the past by birds. We don't know. So you've just got to kind of be careful with them. Jack brings up a big point about the amount of food. So there are a lot of not such good options. That doesn't, not really grammatically correct, but things like there's a lot of chocolate around during the holidays. There's a lot of caffeine. There's a lot of dairy. There's a lot of alcohol. All of those
Yeah,
things, people, you know.
I mean, in all fairness, most of those things aren't that great for us. So it's not that hard to believe that it's not that great for your bird either. So yeah, these are just things to be aware of. And again, you get to that
Mhm.
educational aspect where I am amazed how many people don't realize that, dogs can't have chocolate, birds can't have chocolate, or, you know, shouldn't have chocolate, because we've
Mhm.
all seen, the birds that end up in a rescue that, yeah, the bird for the last 5 years was eating, M&Ms, so it was getting chocolate. So people will argue to say, oh, well, I mean, obviously it's okay, right? And then you bring the bird to the vet and recognize the, untreatable liver damage that animal has sustained from that practice. So even if it's not necessarily something that you're going to see an adverse effect to right away, it is something that is going to have an impact on your animal. So teaching people about those things is going to be really important if you're going to have people over to your home. But just like you were talking about people that are afraid of birds, that educational aspect is going to help you there as well. So I
Mhm.
do animal programming, and a lot of times I do have to get children or adults past their fear of certain animals. believe it or not, the birds that I work with are going to be one of the apparently most terrifying things for people to encounter. Budgies are terrifying, but also things like snakes, lizards. Different people are afraid of different things. Teaching them about those animals usually helps to get over that fear. And especially if you're having to deal with things like children that are afraid of those animals, helping them find similarities between themselves and that animal usually is a good way to get over that fear. So if you have a 6-year-old child, it's like, hey, did you know that this parrot is 6 years old too? Or do you like strawberries because this parrot loves strawberries? Finding things that they have in common usually helps you get past the point of, screaming in tears so that you can then move on to the education.
So that the holidays aren't ruined because of the fear. And I think, you know, some of our birds, Melissa said when she has strangers over, she stands close to them, or guests over, she stands close to them just in case she needs to intervene. And I can see that. And
Mhm.
the other thing is, some of our birds are fine as long as it's a familiar person. But if it's a stranger, suddenly, all humans are bad. I know we've all seen it 1,000 times on, Facebook discussions about, I don't understand, my bird bites me when anybody comes close. Okay, so if you know those kind of things, then again, maybe we station train the bird. Okay, we only have a week until Christmas, but we've got 2 till New Year's. So yeah, the fear of the bite's usually worse than the bite itself, unless it's your kayik, Melissa, and he gets you right here. But we can definitely talk about, you know, ways to get your bird comfortable in a setting where there are a lot of people. The other option is maybe the bird doesn't need to be in the room with everyone. And if somebody wants to meet your bird, okay, let's go meet him one on one. So it's a little bit more comfortable. That's, if the bird's bonded to you and just doesn't deal with anybody else besides your immediate family, then maybe you have him put, in a separate place that night. If the cage is in the middle of the living room and it's going to be party central until, midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, that's probably not good for your bird anyway. So maybe you move the cage.
Well, and
So,
if your bird is afraid of people, there is nothing wrong with having your bird's cage in a separate room. And if people are saying, "Oh, I really want to see the bird," no, we're not going to be doing that right now because you need to remember that your bird lives in your home, your guests don't. So you need to do what's in the best interest of your pet. And sometimes
mhm,
that means no, I'm not going to put that bird in a stressful situation. Um, Now, on the flip side, the holidays can be a good opportunity to get people to interact with a bird who hasn't necessarily had as much interaction. If you want to encourage socialization, you can usually get that. The problem with trying that at the holidays is that we are usually distracted. Um, you know,
mhm.
there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of food. There's sometimes the consumption of adult beverages. So you don't want to put either your animal or your guests in a less than ideal situation because you're not going to be able to interact as or intervene as quickly as you would need to.
Mhm.
And animal trainers see this all the time. We'll see an animal do something and we'll react with, hey, that was completely my fault. I wasn't paying close enough attention. Um, that's why in one of the videos I just did on recording training sessions, looking back at the video, at one point I yawned and got distracted by a bird that was off to the side, and I wasn't paying attention to the parent that I was training. And so those things are just important to know. You set yourself up for success or failure oftentimes before you even get started. So that's just something to be aware of at the holidays. You may not have the ability to monitor and mitigate those interactions as well as you would normally be able to.
And Patricia brings up, perhaps you might have a guest or yourself who's intoxicated. It happens. We've all, I think, most of us have been there. Some of us more than others, but we've all been there. And I think it's a matter of knowing what you're capable of. And when you're drinking and you're partying, sometimes you're like, oh, I got this. Oh, this is so cool. Watch what my bird can do. Well, that's not fair. It's just not fair to your bird. You may have that bird out, and suddenly Uncle Billy comes over and he opens up the door and he's standing there yelling at you, hey, I got the eggnog, and the door's wide open, and there's an opportunity for your bird to be lost. Or the window's open because it's so warm in the living room because there are a lot of people. I mean, granted, things are a little different this year, but if you're distracted, maybe you're, having a drink, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you don't want to be interacting with your bird with unfamiliar people. If somebody is either afraid or not used to birds, and you're like, oh no, it's okay. Here, you can hold them, pet them, it's all right. Could turn into a very bad situation for you and the bird, and in particular for the bird. So I think we want to just, really be aware of what we are. I think sometimes pets get forgotten, not forgotten, but it's that, oh, the hustle and bustle of the holidays happen, and yep, I've got a bird and the bird's being taken care of, but yep, okay, I'm going to do this, and oh, I'll get to the bird in a little bit. And we forget about their needs while we're trying to kind of meet everybody else's needs, because it's about keeping people happy during the holidays. So I think we just kind of need to turn it around a little bit. Thank you, Patricia. I mean, and we do, you got to think about it. It's got to be bird centered sometimes. It does. So we talked about people setting some rules, being really careful with different people in your house. And then the other piece of it is sometimes there are people that are comfortable with your bird, but they might have a drink or two, or they might, be all caught up in the festivities and it gets out of hand. So even sometimes people who are familiar with your bird might not be in the best shape to handle a bird during a party or something like that, a get together. So one of the last things we wanted to, I've seen folks who are drinking think they know how to handle a bird. Absolutely. We've got a recipe for disaster for both the person and the bird.
I mean,
Yeah.
in all fairness, I've seen people who weren't drinking who assumed they knew how to handle a bird. And like birds are so different compared to the average pet. Or that's not true. I don't want to say it that way because I don't want to discredit or denormalize birds as a pet, because I think birds are a wonderful pet. But most people have experience with things like cats or dogs. Birds act completely differently. They are a completely different type of animal. They are a prey animal compared to the predators that we have in cats or dogs. They have the ability to fly and land on all manner of everything in your house. They have a multi-tool on their face. It's a completely different type of animal. And so, that to me is one of the things that's a red flag when people who, if you don't have a bird and you don't do something that works with animals and you just come up and you're like, oh no, I can do this. I know how to do everything with birds. Like, not with mine, you don't, because you're not going to be interacting with my bird.
Right.
And you have to use your best judgment on, who you want to allow to interact with an animal. And that part of it is the planning, because you don't want to be at a holiday party where, oh well, why is that person allowed to interact with the bird and I wanted to hold the bird, and why can't I hold the bird? So sometimes you may just need to preemptively plan, nobody is holding the bird, so nobody gets their feelings hurt.
So Julie brought up a good point. Don't drink and bird. It's very important. I think that's great. But we need bumper stickers that say that, Julie. Don't drink and bird. Hi, Redbird, create that bumper sticker, Jack. I think we need that. And
Oh,
Karen Anderson said the difference is avian versus mammalian, and it's so true. And then Terry brings up the safety issue. Terry put up the safety flag. They know when they can take advantage too. So when
they
your bird
so
finds
do.
that person, Aunt Mary, who's got the whole bowl of almonds sitting beside her, and she's just feeding away. Here you go, honey. Here, have another almond. Oh, look, he really likes those almonds. Oh, look, I think he likes me because he's sitting with me. No, Aunt Mary, he likes the almonds that are sitting at your side. So you kind of have to be aware of what's going on, and they will take advantage of that. They're opportunistic little guys, they really are.
Well, and
So
that brings
all
up a really good point. You
yes.
know, and we hadn't even planned about talking about this, but whenever you have other people that are around interacting with your animal, you want to be thinking about what are they training my animal to do, and what is my animal training them to do. If you have a bird who has then learned, oh, if I give a little scream, Aunt Mary's going to give me an almond every single time just to make me be quiet. In one evening, you could have taught your bird to scream through anytime they know you're around, just because there's a
Mhm.
chance that they might get an almond. Um, and for a lot of people, I don't think they realize that training sort of works both ways. We know that we offer a cue, and the animal offers a behavior, and then we reinforce them. But the animals can do the same thing. The bird can scream as a cue. The cue means give me an almond, and you give them an almond, and then they reinforce that with silence. So just be aware whenever you have other people interacting with your animals, they could potentially be undoing all of the training you have done with your bird or teaching them horrible behaviors.
And you know how hard you work at that training, right? Jack and I are working with you guys so that we can get that training going. And then somebody's going to come along and screw it up at your Christmas party. That's just not right. So we've got to really think about, it's the inadvertent trainer. It happens, and like I'm sure Jack can attest to this fact. In a zoo setting, the guests will train the animals and never even know it. It happens all the time. And so just like that, when you've got, these different people in your home, they could definitely be doing some training. Bev, it's not that scary, Bev. It might be the nightmare before. I don't know. Yeah, Eva, who's training who? It's so very true. So one of the other things that Jack and I wanted to talk about was cooking. So I know you're all fabulous cooks. I haven't made my cookies yet. I have to go shopping tomorrow and get the ingredients, which I told Jack earlier, my ingredients list for cookies is longer than my regular grocery list. So, I might have to have a GoFundMe up tomorrow on Facebook for my cookie stuff. But we wanted to talk about cooking, and that we obviously okay. So, how many times have we all talked about Teflon? We all know Teflon is dangerous, and it's not the Teflon that's sitting there. It's the Teflon that gets overheated and you go, oh, well, I'm a great cook. It's not going to get overheated. Okay, well, you never know. I have known some fan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say there is no visual cue for you when it is getting overheated, and it is going to be on an individual basis per pan. What kind of plastics were used in the Teflon? Uh, there's a lot to consider. It is not a standard answer for every single pan, um, so it's just definitely something you want to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. All right, Melissa. I'll send some. They might not get there till New Year's, but I'll send cookies. So smoke. So obviously, smoking is not good around our birds. Whether it's smoking from being not the best cook ever to smoking anything in your home, just not a good thing. Not their respiratory systems are so different, and some of these things I feel like should be common sense, but we wanted to just mention them just in case we have any new bird owners, or we have any people who haven't gone through a holiday with birds and things like that. So we just wanted to mention some of them. The other thing is, if you have friends over, they may bring something with them. They may bring a food item with them. You've got to be careful of what kind of pan it's in. You don't, if you're going to stick that in the oven, what kind of pan is it in, and what's in it too. So you need to kind of be aware of those things. Um, Jack, can you think of other cooking issues that might come up?
So there's a lot of conflicting information on a couple of different items that you could use for cooking. And my advice would be to just err on the side of caution. So I know one of the items that people can be concerned about is the bags that are used for cooking things like turkeys, the bags that are the liners for a crock pot. Because in something like that, obviously you want to be able to clean that crock pot easily, but not at the expense of harming your bird. Um,
Mhm.
and again, like you mentioned, since you are going to have people coming over, if they are bringing their own dishes, if they are having, uh, if they are going to be cooking in the kitchen, there's one more layer of things you have to think about. So even if you are the type of person that, you have no Teflon in your kitchen anywhere, and you make sure that your bird is somewhere where it's not in the immediate path of if something went wrong in the kitchen, just because you know that doesn't mean that all of your guests are going to know that that is a concern for your house as well.
Absolutely. And, boiling water, that's something that we don't, you just don't think. But if your bird happens to be flighted in your home, comes into the kitchen, there's a pot of boiling water, there are strangers out there, maybe you've just got to be aware. And it all goes back to, I mean, I feel like we keep saying it over and over again. It goes back to being aware of what's happening in your home, and what's a potential hazard for your bird. Bev brings up air fresheners and candles. That's a really important one. They're used a lot on the holidays. You kind of have to decide that that's not going to be part of your holiday thing, or it's not going to be, in a place where it's going to affect your bird. And that's pretty much anywhere in close proximity. So you've just got to be careful. You've got to be cognizant of what's happening. There's another topic that's come up this week on Facebook, and it is um, about the boxes being disinfected. I don't know if any of you have seen that topic come up on Facebook. There's stories out there that boxes are being disinfected at Amazon and at different postal locations, and the disinfectant is killing birds. Birds are allowed to play with the boxes, and it's killing them. Um, I did see a post from Kathy Hahn from My Safe Bird Store. Kathy contacted her UPS rep, and they told her that they are at UPS anyway. They're not disinfect. They don't have a fumigant that they're using to disinfect boxes. It just, quite honestly, the answer was they don't have time to do that. And I can understand with the volume of stuff that's being shipped this year. I totally get it. So you don't want to give them something that has been exposed to aerosolized toxins. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But boxes, and get new boxes. So it's really it's a call on your part what you want to do, but it is out there, and I just don't want to see people panicking if they've already given your bird the box that came in the UPS shipment this afternoon. So that's just another thing that's come up this holiday. 2020 is always so special, so we just thought we'd add another layer of scariness to the holidays. So Jack, anything
Well,
else
and
that you can think of?
I mean, so yeah, with the thing with the boxes, that's actually because of 2020 that things are being disinfected from certain shippers as they're moving things around.
Yeah.
So I mean, that again, all just things to keep in mind. Um, and the reason we wanted to address all of these different topics is because you're going to have some choices to make, and there are choices that you can make, and you can formulate a plan. So I know a lot of people get excited about things like air fresheners and candles because they smell like Christmas. That's part of why we have the natural garland, because it has a natural Christmas tree smell to it. Uh, and as I said, there were already concerns to address with that. So you basically need to go through and figure out what are the concerns that you want to sign up for. Uh, I usually tell people, always hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, because then even if the worst happens, you're prepared for it.
Mhm.
So I think by taking a look at what is in your home, formulating a plan for how people are going to be able to interact with your bird, if they're going to be able to interact with your bird, is definitely something that should be done in order to ensure the health and well-being of everyone involved. And a lot of times we will worry about things that could happen to the birds. But obviously, if you have anything bigger than a budgie, if that bird gets stressed, it does have the ability to bite. And I'm not trying to discredit budgie bites, because those can hurt too. But, you know, a bite from a parrot can be medically significant. You don't want to have somebody at your Christmas party then need stitches because your blue and gold macaw nailed them.
Because of something that could have been avoided.
Correct.
And I think, that's what all the basis of everything that Jack and I have been saying is that just being aware. And if there's something that makes your Christmas and you just can't live without it, and it's part of what we discussed tonight, okay. So you just wanna make sure that the bird doesn't have access to that, or you can work around things. I know that you guys are all creative. You're bird owners, right? You've got to think on your feet. And so this is kind of part of it. A little bit of planning ahead of time to make sure we can head those issues off at the pass. So we've been talking a little bit about food. Um, is there anybody on tonight who is a first time listener who hasn't been with us on a Friday night flock talk before? Who's willing to tell me they're out there? Oh, so you guys are
Well,
all the
and if you want to
loyal
share
listeners.
this, I was gonna say, if you guys want to share this with your friends, we are going to be doing these sessions for the foreseeable future. So you should just
Mhm.
plan on spending Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern with us as we cover a variety of avian topics. Um, that was my little filler
Absolutely.
message as people type.
So, okay, so Eva, this is Eva's first time. Welcome, Eva. And thank you for listening. And Eva, as a first time listener, I want to thank you. So private message me after the session here, and you brought a guest. All right, so you and your guest, and don't try to create a guest, Eva. Um, you and your guest, Wendy. Welcome, Wendy. Thank you. Um, Private message me, and I will send you both a toy from our new Leather Elves Cafe collection, because we talked a lot about food tonight. So this is food that is okay for your birds. The Leather Elves has created the cafe collection, and it's fun toys that are destructible. Some of them are foraging toys, and they mimic some junk food that might not. There you go. They mimic some junk food that might not be. There's the hookbill hot dog, the parrot pizza, the bacon double cheese bircher. See what I did there? Foraging fries, a foraging taco. So if you guys message me afterwards and we can pick one of those, and I would love to send you, Eva, and Wendy both one of those items. So thank you guys. And as Jack mentioned, we are going to be doing this unless you all just stop listening for the foreseeable future. Um, it's we would like to come up with topics that really help you all out. If you've got suggestions, where you can reach Jack and I both. And message us and say, hey, could you talk about this? Could you talk about that? We have worked up a schedule that goes through, let me take a look, that goes through most of February. We're taking next Friday off for Christmas, I gotta say. But
We're
we
so
are going to take
lazy.
Friday. We are, we didn't put that effort in, darn it. But we wouldn't want to pull you guys away from all your friends. So we are going to take next Friday off, but we're not going to take New Year's Day off because we thought that New Year's Day, January 1st, would be a great day to talk about setting goals and looking ahead. How are we going to make 2021 better? Okay, so it's got to be better than 2020. But we really want to talk about setting, was that knocking on wood? We've got to talk about,
Yes.
setting some goals for ourselves and for our birds. And for, how can we kind of make our own education better? How can we improve our knowledge so that we can improve the quality of life for our birds? So that's what we're going to be doing January 1st. And we hope to see you guys. And if anybody's got, like I said, anything they want to talk about, contact us. Jack, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, and we do always encourage people, if you haven't already liked the Leather Elves page, make sure that you like the Leather Elves page because that's going to give you the opportunity to participate in the live stream as it's happening. You can ask any questions that you have at that time. If you are not going to be able to make a session, if you want to be able to share them more easily outside of those Friday nights, I am also going to be taking all of these sessions and putting them as videos on the High Redbird YouTube channel. So we're going to have two different places where you can access all of the information. But definitely join us because we like answering your questions. I love the interaction that we're able to have with the live stream sessions because it's like having friends again. And 2020 has definitely felt very isolated, very alone. I have spent most of my time talking to my animals, and I am so thankful that I in my life. But some of them don't necessarily have the best personalities. I have, one of my goats. She's a little bit grumpy, and it's not a great day if I talk to her first thing in the morning. So thank you guys so much for joining in and participating every single week.
We do appreciate it so much, and the fact that you participate. We last week when we couldn't get the internet to work, the interwebs was broken, I think, but we couldn't get it to work. And consider doing it, just recording it. But Jack and I are not this much fun without you. We're really not. So we want you guys to keep listening, and we learn stuff from you all too. Well, thank you, Diane, and Merry Christmas to you too. And we will look forward to seeing you guys on January 1st. It'll be, we'll see how the first day of 2021 goes. We'll take a poll during our live stream and see what happens. So there better be good reports. I'm counting on you guys. And the more you share this with your friends, the better it makes Jack and I feel. But plus, we can get this information out to bird owners in other places. And, Diane, Terry, Bev, Melissa, you guys are here all the time, and we really appreciate it. And Julie. So thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas if you celebrate. If not, happy Hanukkah. If not, I don't know what else. But have a great holiday season, you guys, and stay safe. And we will see you in 2021.
I do need to say thank you to my Patreon patrons for helping to make these videos possible. You can find out more by visiting High Redbird on Patreon or clicking the link in the description section down below if you would like more information. Thanks!